Welcome to this edition of Greenspring Advisors Community Spotlight, where we look to focus on those organizations and individuals in the community doing really great work to improve lives by helping people make better decisions for themselves and those who depend on them. So today I am very fortunate to have with me 2020 grantee Amy Taubenfeld, who is the Itineris' founder, executive director, and client mom. Amy, can you please tell us, start us off with a little bit about Itineris Foundation, Itineris' mission, and how you got started?
So thank you so much for talking to us today, and thank you so much for allowing us to be the recipient of this grant. Itineris is an organization that was started out of complete and total need. We literally just refreshed our mission statement as we did a strategic plan. And we have really talked about how we are now utilizing empowering adults on the autism spectrum to live meaningful lives throughout the lifespan. And I think we extended the throughout the lifespan because we really have started to recognize that our adults will be with us throughout their lives. And I think that's the piece that was so meaningful to our families. When you get a diagnosis of autism for your child, the first question everyone asks, and will ask forever and ever and ever, is what happens to my child when I'm gone? That is our big fear. And I think as one of the founders, there are 9 of us that co-founded Itineris together. Our story began with just that question. What's going to happen? And our adults are going to be 21 at some point, and then what happens to them next? What is the next step for us? It was really, really never our intention to open up a program. We were just doing basic research on best practices for adults on the spectrum and wanted to see what was out there. And then we were going to make recommendations to the Autism Society of Maryland. We had quite a few members whose children were getting to be 17, 18, 19, and everyone was saying, what do I do now? What do I do now? What do I do now? So I joined this group in pretty much a research model, and it was so compelling what we found as we started to look. And what we found was a lot of the organizations, and we looked at every organization in the state of Maryland, and outside of Maryland, we went through about 5 additional states and started doing research on how adults with autism fit into programs throughout these areas. And what we found was really challenging. Most of the agencies fit adults with autism within their multi-approach to clients with multi-disabilities. And yet the spectrum of autism is so unique and requires such specific protocols and training and experience and philosophy that they just, that one size fits all approach just did not work. And we saw this over and over and over and over again. And we did find 3 amazing agencies that were like exactly what our dreams would have been for our adults. And the one compelling thing that we saw was all 3 of them were autism specific. And that the only thing that these agencies understood was the full spectrum of autism. They really understood the strategies. They really understood how to teach, how to individualize, how they have an expression in the autism world that if you know one person with autism, you know one person. So each individual really needed their own schedule, their own individual plan, their own person-centered approach. What works for my daughter may not work for 5 other people. What works for someone else may not work for my daughter. And we kept finding this over and over again. So we did sit at the table, and one of the moms actually said, I just need to know what's going to happen to Robin when I'm gone. And all of us were like tearing and crying. And we have a mom on our board who has a wonderful sense of humor, but has a pretty impacted son. And she turned around and said, wait, we can die? I didn't even know that was an option. And that just like lightened the load. And I think I just turned to everyone at that point and just said, I think we just need to open up our own program. We'd asked everyone else to come to Baltimore that we had seen. They all said no. We had talked to other schools and asked them to open up programs. They all said, well, that's not really our thing. So we just said, let's just do this. We'll make it happen. And we were very naive. We had no idea what we were doing. And we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. but we knew that we had the knowledge and the experience. Our co-founders were psychologists. They were people who had spent years in the autism world. We had family members with adults with autism. We had brought in someone who ran an adult program with a lot of clients who had like psychosocial and other disorders. So he had a lot of experience in how to run an agency. And then we had an advocate, a self-advocate on our committee who really was the voice of our potential clients at that time. So we just decided to do it and just give it a shot. And that was in 2007. And we opened our doors in 2010 with our first client.
Wow. What a story. It's very impressive, the level of data collection that you were doing and reaching out to experts in their field and really finding that evidence to drive and compel your mission and to be really focused in the actions that you were taking. It's a true picture of an advocate on a grander scale. So I think that's really phenomenal to be able to do that in a way where you are, like you said, Amy, really focusing on these highly individualized sets of needs, you know, but in a greater community. And that really comes across in the work that you're doing. So that being said, how can you say this particular grant is going to help the programming that Itineris Foundation has in place?
First of all, during these pandemic times, as we all know, I mean, revenues are down in general. Even though we are supporting about 90% of our clients now, we have gone through months where when we first had to switch over to the virtual programming, we started with 15 of our almost 100 clients, then it was 30 of our almost 100 clients, and it was 50. Now we're at 90%, but March, April, and May have been very challenging months for us. Going into June, we're getting better, but not even close. But even though we recognize this tremendous loss of revenue, we recognize that in spite of these challenging times, the most important thing for us to focus on right now was our workforce development and how we were going to readjust to supporting our clients in meaningful employment and meaningful opportunities. So we did go ahead and actually hired a workforce development manager in the middle of a pandemic to help strengthen our workforce team and to really maintain the focus on post-pandemic, during pandemic. We know that a lot of our clients right now are on furlough from their jobs, and we're hoping that all those jobs will return when people start rehiring and reopening. But we really wanted a proactive approach to workforce development and making sure that we were staying in touch with employers, reaching out for new employer relationships. And just recently, one of our outreach clients just got a full-time job this week, which is super exciting. Awesome. So, yeah. You know, we're still moving forward with our vision and our plans. And of course, any revenue during this time is going to be greatly appreciated toward the focus of workforce development right now.
I think another aspect, it seems, with Itineris' work is this, again, this incredible foresight, but really grounded, again, in that recognition and understanding and acceptance of this highly individualized set of needs. And it sounds like you have a pretty extensive network of like-minded organizations and businesses that are supporting you. So I think we've touched a little bit on, you know, thank you for answering essentially two questions in one, you know, looking at how the pandemic has affected the work that you're doing. So let's move forward a little bit. And in the spirit of foresight and thinking ahead, what can you share with us about your vision of where you see Itineris 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What does that look like?
So we completed a 3-year strategic plan 2 years ago, which we felt so comfortable with the direction of our plan. It was actually one of the more incredible opportunities because we chose to do a dual strategic plan with our directors team and our board at the same time. So it was really the director, you know, I feel like in a lot of companies, the board of directors like dictates down to the team, this is what you'll be doing. And our board is so inclusive and recognizes that like the people who are actually doing the day-to-day work are the most in touch with the needs of the organization. And yet they're very aligned and supportive of everything that we're doing, which is wonderful. So we did a group activity together, but then we as directors included management and staff in this process, everywhere from helping us to determine our core values and our missions going forward, to rewriting our mission and vision statements, to looking at what our future plans were, and really incorporated their feedback and advice into where they felt were the most important things that they could see the frontline staff, our direct service professionals, what were their thoughts on this? Because it's really hard to disassociate the director's team from what's actually happening on the ground with our frontline staff. So it was super important for us. So we really, really looked at community living for our clients. That is something we had not done yet. Becoming more of like a program that offered all of our services to all of our clients, as opposed to initially we sort of were a community development team, and we had an employment services team and a personal supports team, and then a behavioral supports team. But each team felt like, my client, the person that I work with every day is in community development, but they should be able to talk to the employment team about a job or a volunteer opportunity. And we had clients on our employment services team that the staff was reporting that they could really use help by our behavioral team to help them stay focused at their job, or to help them curtail some activities that might challenge them from being successful in their work. So we really moved more to like one agency, all departments, and all clients getting access now to all services, which I think has been a staff recommendation for us that's been really well received. Adding community living to that piece was also something that was strongly recommended by a lot of our families, of course, but a lot of our direct service professionals felt like having that 360 opportunity rather than the 6-hour a day where we're borrowing the client from the family, for clients who might have had more behavioral challenges, how much easier it would be to have like a complete opportunity to work with every department doing everything the same, how well that would have been for our clients. We've also talked about, right now we are supporting about 100 and something. I've lost count right now because we're bringing in new clients this year and not all of them have started, but we will reach 113 this year.
Fantastic.
But we recognize we're getting about 120 to 150 inquiries every year for our services. And if we're taking between 10 and 12 clients, clearly we are not supporting the majority of the people who are requesting our services. So we've been thinking long and hard about, do we open a second location? Do we help other people open an Itineris? What can we do to be thought leaders in the community to expand our services and help others do this? Do we do it ourselves? Do we do a combination of that? Do we help some people do it, but do we do it also? So that's been something else that we've talked about, is expanding our services into a second or third location. And then we're also finding there's just a huge gap in services for 18 to 21-year-olds. Falling off the cliff happens for everyone, but dramatically for someone who's graduating school at 18 and then does not have access to adult services until they're 21. A lot of families refer to that as falling off the cliff or boys in the basement. The parents are like having to leave their jobs and stay at home because their adult is basically playing on the computer 5 to 6 to 7 hours a day, losing skill rapidly, becoming more isolated, increase in behaviors, and there's a huge gap for that group. So we've been talking about what does that look like for an 18 to 21 program? How do we support that? So I think in our 3 to 5 year plan, these have been things that we've been heavily talking about. But I think our global focus is, we have a program that's working, and how do we help more people? We're never satisfied with just our 100 clients when we know that there's so many families out there that need us and depend on us for guidance and support. And what can we do to do more of this? Like, how do we help more people in the community and outside of the community?
I think that brings us to another question, and maybe two questions in one. So, I'm curious, how does a client find you? Would be in the first question. I having kids myself, and being in the network of school and parenting, and I have a few close friends whose children will be approaching that falling off the cliff. How would a client find you? And second, I think that would bring us to how what can those who may be listening or watching in the community do to best support Itineris?
So how people find us, I think it's really word of mouth at this point, honestly. As they get older, like 18, 19, there's a lot of school recommendations, resource coordination recommendations. So people hear about us through those methods. But a lot of it is parent to parent. Oh, have you heard about Itineris? I think we're very aligned in the autism community. So I think there's a lot of resources from, Autism Speaks locally to a lot of the chapters of the Autism Society throughout the area. But families definitely are hearing from us and have heard about us through a lot of schooling too. And it's really a challenge because we were talking about this yesterday about ramping up our website and how do we increase it. And we're one of the rare businesses that doesn't need business in that sense. We don't need more people to know about us right now because we can't really take on the load of people that are reaching out. The super happy place that we're in right now is the virtual classes has really allowed us to actually post on our website, like, we can take more people to do virtual classes right now. So if you are a family member or a parent who is struggling right now with an adult at home, we have virtual classes that we can accept other clients into. And we have a client, I think, from Florida right now that's joining us. We have some other families that have recently joined us who have been new clients, and they're really benefiting from our classes. We're actually teaching 42 classes a day in 4 sessions. And the classes are ranging, they're very personalized again. So my daughter, who is in a 1-to-3 to 1-to-4 ratio, is never in a class bigger than 4 people, which is really extraordinary because many other agencies who are doing virtual classes are teaching 50, 60 kids at a time. And we have the same number of staff in the class that are supporting the client. So if my daughter has extra needs, she has staff that's working with her to help her be as successful. But she's taking classes in things that are super meaningful to her, like social skills, acceptance and commitment therapy, work readiness, career development, job discovery. We're teaching cooking classes, live cooking classes, where they are actually cooking together and then doing recipe development, measurement, fractions, all the things that go along with that. So each class is super meaningful, and the clients are actually taking classes that are part of their traditional IP goals and their person-centered plan. So it's been really, really helpful. And people are finding us just right now through our website and through word of mouth.
So about this highly individualized set of needs. So, when you have this ratio that you're able to offer your clients, this is not just an ideal ratio because it's a desire. This is ideal because it's truly a need. Absolutely. For the Itineris clients. Can you talk a little bit about what typical needs can be for an adult on the autism spectrum and how Itineris supports those needs? So
prior to COVID, and even today, we have 100 clients and we run 100 individualized programs every day. So ratios of staff to client are literally determined by every individual person. That is human-centered. It happens at their person-centered planning meetings. We're meeting with their team, their family, the adult, their staff, and it's determined at that time, like, what level of need does each person have? And that's what we stick with. We do not have any clients in larger than a 1-to-4. Most agencies have a 1-to-9 to 1-to-15 client to staff ratio. When you're working with unique individuals on the spectrum, and we are taking clients across the entire spectrum. So we have clients who have very little social ability and maybe some serious cognitive challenges, to clients who may have a very easy social ability and can communicate very fluently and have equally difficult challenges maybe with their behavior or with maintaining a job. So we staff each person accordingly, and it's literally their personal needs. So my daughter, when she started at Itineris, was in a 1-to-1 at all times. She moved to 1-to-2 as her level of independence was increasing and her behaviors were decreasing, and she moved to a 1-to-3, and now she's in a 1-to-3/1-to-4. So the goal is to just help each client have the most meaningful experience that they can have during the day with their most meaningful life, but always looking at their health and safety needs. So what needs do they have in the community? And certainly we really want them to grow and be integral parts of their community. And what do they need in a level of support to help that happen in their community, in their work, at their home, and all of those options.
So again, more data, and talking about your daughter, Amy, and looking at, there's a lot of data that goes along with this that you're collecting as you're creating, and looking at ratio. It sounds like that's one way you can measure success for your clients. Can you talk a little bit more about some other ways that Itineris measures the success of your clients in the workforce, in the community, and beyond?
In all of those things, we measure success. So as I said, it starts with their person-centered plan. And then each client has goals that we really take very seriously, and they are very individualized to the client. So their goals could be to increase their time in the community, to decrease certain behaviors that are creating barriers, to increase employment or to begin employment, to increase their communication strategies. All of those things are measured, and we take data. We are extremely data heavy. Every note is individualized to the client based on their goals. And every other week is a data week in our building, and we take data every other week on their progress. And then progress notes are actually sent out to parents quarterly, and they are evaluated. So if things are not going well, the team sits down and talks about what can we do better. If things are going really well and the client is mastering goals, then we can talk about how do we push forward with some additional options for them to continue to reach toward their goals. But everything starts with the client's hopes and dreams and the family's hopes and dreams for the client.
Can you leave us with one final thought about Itineris?
So, Itineris, as I said, I think all great organizations are the ones that parents created. I think just going forward, I get a little emotional about this part, but, we started this journey for the 9 of us, for our children, for the people that mattered to us. Growing this, as I've been watching other people joining the journey with Annie and the other people who started Itineris together, it just brings me just tremendous pride and joy to see that we're taking other people on this journey with us. But it saddens me to know that there are way too many people out there that we have yet to reach. And a huge piece of that is just community support. We really need, just in global general, the community to be more supportive of the autism community, by just welcoming them as members of the community and participating. If you see a mom in the grocery store who is having a really hard time with their child, instead of rolling your eyes, maybe offer to hold the cart for a minute, or can I help you? My daughter has had many a meltdown in many a store, and we have been admonished and criticized, can't you control your child, or can't you do something about their behavior? And I used to carry an autism card around with me that said, we're doing the best we can. My child is on the spectrum and we're trying our best. So I think just often recognizing just a helping hand from time to time, but also, believing in us. Autism, the CDC has connected autism in general with a 1 in 54 ratio in births that will be diagnosed on the autism spectrum. This is not a disorder that is decreasing over time. It is increasing dramatically. And places like Itineris are going to be very, very important. And we really need financial support. We have a really big nut to crack every year financially to the intensive supports that we provide. As I said, if we were doing 1 in 15 client to staff ratio versus a 1-to-1 to 1-to-3 or 1-to-4, we would be making a lot more financial resources available to us. But we really do need financial support. We need employment opportunities, companies that are thinking of improving their work environment. The neurodiversity movement is really something that has become a huge success right now. And organizations like Microsoft and SAP and JP Morgan Chase and Ernst & Young and many of our 55 employment partners have found that the increase in employment with a person on the autism spectrum has changed their environment for the better. You have someone who thinks outside the box, someone who can do tasks that other people may not be able to do, has an intense focus on certain things that might be repetitive or very detail oriented that you and I may not want to do. So employment opportunities, connect with us on social media and, follow our success stories and follow what our clients are doing and follow the different things that we're doing. We're always looking for corporate guest presenters to our clients about, someone in HR who might want to talk about what would be a great mock interview style or, what would you be looking for if you were a HR director talking to our clients about that, things like that. But thinking of becoming an employer partner like you are. You're an employee, you have now become a partner of Itineris, and we're always looking for partners. So these are kind of things that I think are really going to be helpful and beneficial to us. The more help we get in the community, the more that we can help others.
Truly takes a village, doesn't it, Amy?
It takes a village.
Well, I'm pleased that we could sit down and be in this village together. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I do want to remind anyone listening and watching they can visit your website, itinerisbaltimore.org, correct?
Yep.
And just to reach out and the spirit of compassion and understanding and empowering ourselves and each other. Thank you for all of the work that you're doing. I'll look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thank you. Me too. And thank you again to Greenspring Advisors. This is just this was such an unexpected boost to us this year. So thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Amy.